Hello and welcome to another instalment of our Talking Politics USA Q&A sessions. You have been sending in a lot of questions to us about all things America, so we shall crack on with answering as many as we can today. Dan is here alongside the former White House Director of Events, Laura Schwartz, to tackle them. Now, first things first, the one that has come in that is the most contemporaneous and current, an email from Robin, and he asks, if the Musk and Trump fight really blows up, who comes off worse? Laura, over to you.
Well, Donald Trump has the power of the base. Elon Musk has the power of a checkbook, and it takes money to run political campaigns and elections. And so I think Musk might come out a little farther ahead. We're looking at polling every day. People are asking who's winning, who's up, who's down. Right now, the Republicans are solidly behind Donald Trump. But once they go up for re-election, you never know what that may bring. We're all watching it closely.
Now, we're also spicing things up a little bit this week because we've got a video question about Trump's travel ban. And this comes from Mona, who lives in North London. Dan, you have a listen and you can take this one.
So this is not the first time Donald Trump announced a travel ban. Last time it was in January 2017. So what's the difference between this one and, the one from 2017? What difference does it make for Iranian or, other countries, other people from those countries who are on the list of the travel ban?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You remember the travel ban in 2017 became colloquially known as the Muslim travel ban, and it caused huge uproar and outrage when Donald Trump tried to ban everyone coming from a host of countries, including Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Yemen, I think it was. This time, it's interesting. It's just been such a tsunami of other news. It feels like this latest attempt at sort of restricting people coming in, hasn't caused the waves that it did last time, or the headlines, because so much other stuff has been going on. And it's also a kind of slightly broader smattering of countries, some of which are partly banned, some of which are completely banned. This will all end up in the courts anyway. There will be legal challenges to this. But there are a lot of African countries this time, as well as other countries around the Middle East. There's Haiti, for example. There's, Equatorial Guinea. There's Congo. There's partial bans for places like Sierra Leone, Venezuela, Laos. It's difficult to kind of thread what is the common theme with any of these countries, other than really they're all fairly poor, economically challenged. And I suppose the Trump administration feels that these are the kind of places where mass migration is happening from. There are drivers that are forcing people to leave because of poverty or violence. They want to crack down on immigration, and this is their answer.
The next question that comes from Maddie in the Wirral, again, it's a video. I suppose, I'll tell you what, let's play it and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Hello. My question would be how effective the Mexican wall has been. How has it diminished the influx of Mexican people? Thank you.
Very polite, Maddie, of the world. We should say that the big Mexican wall that Trump talked about so often in his first term never actually came to fruition. But there has been a big change, hasn't there? I'll ask you this, Dan, in terms of border crossings in his second term, hasn't there?
Yeah, look, interesting question. I don't think the wall per se has had a massive effect. I think more the signals and the attitude of the Trump government and the policies are what's had a bigger effect. I think both parties would admit that migration into the United States has fallen dramatically. If you look at the figures, back in December 2023, there were about 225,000 people coming through the border. That's fallen in February of this year to about 8,000. So it's been a precipitous fall away, and I think part of that is due to sort of these very public flights where people have been sent to, places like El Salvador in shackles and so on. Part of it is just the kind of posture and attitude of this government, which is just making it very clear that people are not welcome and that there is a much more muscular approach on the border.
I mean, it's making everyone think differently about going to the States, whether that be students or people on their holidays, isn't it, Laura?
It is, which is really unfortunate. But immigration is something that Trump campaigned on. People don't necessarily like the way that he's enforced immigration, but they are happy that it's been enforced. So his numbers are still pretty steady when it comes to approval for that. As far as when it comes to cutting off the key certification for a university like Harvard in order to accept international students into their programs, of which are highly attended, especially graduate schools. It's good for the American economy. It's good for American innovation. That's where the sticking point has been. Is he going too far? And so far, the judges have turned down every try at blocking international students. But a lot of international students are wary. I think we talked at Talking Politics USA a week ago that some of them are now looking, well, do I extend a lease at Cambridge or Oxford? Do I go to another country? We don't want to lose that innovation. But some of these policies are really putting it at risk.
Whereas Oxford and Cambridge are probably rubbing their hands with glee. Now, I'm going to mix up the order a tiny bit here, just because you talked about approval ratings of Trump and his administration. So a question came in on Facebook from a gentleman called Andrew Hall, and he says, given all that has happened, how come Donald Trump has a good poll rating and why are the Democrats' approval ratings down so low? I mean, I suppose we should clarify really that his net approval rating is still lower than almost all other presidents, modern presidents, at this equivalent point. Laura, is that right?
Yeah. It is, but with his approval ratings being so low, this would be a time for the Democrats to get themselves back together, but they are still out wandering the land of the lost. What they need to do, and I know that they are trying, but it's got to be more forthright. They can combat bills. When you're in the minority, when you're not in office, it is harder to make your voice known, but they've got to go to meet people where they are. If they learned anything from the defeat in 2024, they should know that America cares about immigration. They don't want to be told that the economy is good when they're not seeing as much in their paycheck every month after paying for goods and services. So get back on the level with the American people. And by the way, you can do that in some creative opportunities that are made, because a lot of Republicans right now are shying away from in-person town halls. Democrats should be going into the other states saying, hey, we'll do a town hall with you. We're not afraid of your questions. And start making your way, find that more centrist movement and make sure that people know that you want to go along with them for the journey. You're not leaving them behind or just telling them their journey's fabulous when it isn't. They've got a lot of work to do, and they've got to get at it now.
I mean, Dan, as Laura said, the Democrats are like the lost party at the moment. Why are they so invisible at the moment?
Well, I think part of it is that there's no leader of the opposition here. So you don't have a kind of figurehead. There's no kind of, prime minister's questions where you get a chance to interrogate Donald Trump directly and ask him questions and challenge him. So it's much more diffuse and disparate in a way. There are Democrat governors who have a voice, but they tend to maybe not cut through as much in the UK. There are senators like Chuck Schumer and so on, but I think that the Dems are really in need of a new generation and a new voice. Perhaps having licked their wounds after this last election, a more centrist voice. I think they've probably learned the lesson of having been perceived as being too progressive and too left wing in the last election. Maybe need to find that more centrist ground. I mean, when it comes to Donald Trump's approval ratings, yes, it's come up a bit in the last couple of months, but it's still pretty low. I think it's the latest one was 45% approval rating, which is historically pretty bad at this point for a president. And I think he'll be acutely aware of that. He is a man that has a very thin skin and will watch these polls very closely. And I'm sure they are concerned about that as we head towards the midterms next year.
So, Dan, you think that it's a figurehead, a talisman or taliswoman that the Democrats are crying out for to kind of relaunch them, as opposed to actually their identity as what they are, what they stand for? Because, you know, love them or hate them, we definitely know what the Republicans are all about.
Yeah, the Republican Party's been captured by Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. I mean, it is a one-man party in a sense, and Donald Trump's word, is the law when it comes to the Republicans. There is not the kind of galvanizing figure at the moment in the Democrat Party, which perhaps they need. But I do kind of feel like they had twin problems in the last election. One was that for most of the run up to the election, they had Joe Biden there, who was just seen as way too old and not mentally fit for another second term. And then they had Kamala Harris, who was seen as too progressive and too left wing. Whether that's right or wrong, you can argue about. But I feel like now there is an opportunity for the Democrats to find a young, dynamic, centrist voice. You would think would go down pretty well in stark contrast to Donald Trump, who's in his late 70s, and he'll not be running next time. But it might be JD Vance, it might be someone else. But I think that's the figure that the Democrats need to find to reinvigorate their party.
I am genuinely
and maybe
hungry
that voice
to see
isn't a politician at all.
Maybe. Well, I am hungry, genuinely hungry to see who emerges out of the shadows for them. Now, okay, this question came in on Facebook too, from a chap called Julius Marstrand, and he says, how can a president who claims to understand business not understand the negative effect on US businesses from constantly short-term changing of regulatory and tariff arrangements? Hopefully I said that correctly. I probably slightly did it wrongly, but you get the gist.
Well, for a guy that, ran a business a long time in real estate, he does a lot of deals. He is a master brander, is really what he's all about, whether it's his meme coin and cryptocurrency or anything else, from The Apprentice on TV and so forth. He also had to declare bankruptcy 6 times. So I guess the level of business influence and knowledge still remains to be quantified, I should say. And I think we're seeing that more and more, as you mentioned, with the tariffs, because Walmart, for example, a very big box store here in the United States, makes $19 billion a year. And Trump went after them when they said, their CEO on their earnings call said, we may have to raise our prices because the tariffs are increasing our prices. And so when it comes to that, Walmart has to make $700 billion in order to show $19 billion. They have a very low profit margin at 2.75%. That's something that Donald Trump doesn't really understand or connect with. So there is a disconnect with the business community. Although I will say this, they are starting to find that there is a pattern. We talked about recently this nickname of Taco. Trump always chickens out, which is what they've been talking about on Wall Street, because all of a sudden he implements tariffs, then he pulls them back. He implements, he pulls them back. And it messes with the markets. But people are now starting to see that he does have a sense of the markets. Maybe he's not willing, to Dan's point just previous, to let his approval numbers go down further. And so maybe by understanding the instability in his approach, they'll find some stability. But right now, people are hiring less, and that's concerning.
Stability comes by predicting instability, I suppose. Fair enough. Now, Dan, I think you've probably been in the White House, or in and around the White House, more recently than Laura. So this one is for you, and it comes from Lizzie. It's another video one, and she's from Norwich.
Hi, as a watcher of news based in the UK, I'm really fascinated by what it must be like being a reporter working in the White House press office, especially under the Trump administration. I'd love to know what you really think of Caroline Leavitt and what's actually going on there. Is it a press office or a propaganda machine?
Okay, well, look, I mean, all White House press secretaries are propagandists. That is their job. They are there to sell the agenda of the current president to the public. So that said, she is a very polished and professional PR strategist, if you like, for the president. She very rarely puts a foot wrong. She's incredibly hardworking, very robust at dealing with what she would call the mainstream or legacy media. They have had this strategy of trying to bring in new media, podcasters, particularly from the right of politics. So there has been a shift in the kind of base of power inside the press room, where they are trying to get in more of the people they feel are sympathetic to their point of view. But having said that, there are still all the main US networks and represented there. We have access to the press room as well. But, you know, she doesn't take any prisoners. She's very nice personally. We've met with her a couple of times, very polite and interested in the UK. But my goodness, yeah, she I think she would best be described as Donald Trump's kind of PR attack dog. She takes no prisoners in those press briefings. And whether you agree with the politics of Donald Trump or not, I think you can say she's a very good advocate for what he stands for.
Yeah, I'm always staggered at just how robust she is, especially when she's only, I think, mid to late 20s, isn't she?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think she's the youngest press secretary ever, or since the Nixon era, maybe. I can't remember, maybe Laura knows, but she's 27, I think, which is an incredible achievement to get to that point so young in life and to be so accomplished and polished.
Goodness me, I wonder what the rest of her career will end up being like. Thank you both very much. That was a real quick fire round, and it was great input from you both, as usual. That is all for now. Thank you for listening, and thanks to all of you who sent your questions to us. Please keep them coming in to us on X, Facebook, or on email, talkingpolitics@itv.com. It is great to have video questions too, which you can send that also to the email address. Keep an eye out for our UK edition too, which will arrive with you later in the week. Until then, it is goodbye from all of us.